Well, you go back even further than that to find out the origin of the name of the boat.
Yeah. Well, I just want to introduce for the camera that you're Mr. Pete Pardee, and you've been here a long time. This is Allison Pardee. And first thing we'd like to know is about your sailboat you designed with Harrisoff, or you could tell me the lineage of that, in the name, of course.
The boat was an H-28, and it was originally designed by L. Francis Harrisoff. Captain that's one of his sons. And it was built in wood with plans that were published in Runner magazine many years ago. Along around the time when I got my boat, a fellow down Long Island decided that it could be reproduced in fiberglass. And that seemed like a good idea to me at the time. So I ordered one, but I didn't order the whole boat because I discussed it with Halsey Harrisoff,
Halsey Harrisoff,
who is Captain Nat's grandson.
who's still alive today.
Yeah, and he and I both agreed it'd be interesting to you have it as a sloop with a roller furling mast invented by Ted Hood.
So modernized somewhat.
Well, it had never been built that way or designed that way, but it had been designed as a sloop. So Halsey took me over to, where was it? Mattapoisett, I think. And there's a fellow over there who had a hull of an H-28 that had been built as a sloop. So we got to look at that, and that looked reasonable. And we went ahead and ordered the boat from the guy down in Long Island where he was molding them. And Halsey and I went down and talked to the guy and covered a few things. And we got the boat with the keel and the rudder and the deck planned, but none of the hardware, no mast, none of that stuff. And had it shipped up here.
And Dad, as I recall, Halsey had some very specific, he had some specifications about how he wanted the layers of the fiberglass to be. Do you remember that?
Yes, he suggested that the amount of fiberglass they were putting in it was perhaps more than it needed, but I don't think the guy paid much attention. It didn't make any difference, really. So it came up here and they squeezed it into the shed, the one up it became the original Harrisoff Museum, and there they finished it off. Ted Hood shipped down a mast with the roller furling gear in it. Halsey and I agreed that it'd be a good idea to have a semi-wishbone rig to go with the roller furling mast. So that was developed. Yeah, and that worked out rather well.
What about the idea that you had about putting a wishbone on the jib? Remember what you were going to call that?
No.
You had said you wanted the wishbone to go bend to the right, and then you were going to try, I think at one point you tried a wishbone boom on the jib, and you wanted it to go to the left. And Mom's, yeah.
That was not the jib. That was the propeller shaft. L. Francis Harrisoff didn't like to push the engine shaft through the deadwood dead center. He liked to offset it on one side, and he figured that the rotation of the propeller, if you got it on the right side, would help the boat have a neutral helm when it was putting along. And so he came to me one day after they'd installed the engine and drilled a hole for the shaft and put the bracket on for the shaft. And he said, "Pete, we made a little mistake here. We agreed that we would put the shaft through on the port side, and somehow we got it through on the starboard side. However, if the engine that we're going to use doesn't care whether it's in reverse or forward, and if you want to push forward on the control to make it go forward, as usual, all we'll do is let the engine run in reverse, which it doesn't care about, but it will go forward when you push it forward and back when you pull it back. So I said, all right with that. That's what we did. So it had nothing to do with the jib.
Well, I beg, so that was interesting. However, I will try to remind you again that at one point you had the jib with a wishbone boom on the jib as well. And you wanted the boom on the mast to go to the right and the boom on the jib to go to the left.
I don't remember that.
Mom wanted them both on the same side. And your argument, this might spark your memory, your argument was that if one was on the right and the other was on the left, that you could then call it a parenthesis rig.
Don't remember that at all. I
I
wouldn't put it past me.
But you did try the wishbone boom on the jib, and for whatever reason, it didn't work.
Yeah, we ended up with a regular boom, but
Yes.
everything worked out eventually. And the name Oriana came from a boat that my father and uncle had. Well, actually, my grandfather had it. They used it. And this was a 21-foot class boat. No particular design, a sloop. And it did very well with my uncle and my father sailing it. In fact, it won just about every race that it was in except one. And that one was when their father, who owned the boat, was aboard. And they were ripping along at their usual
Pace.
thrash to windward. And my grandfather thought the boat was tipping too much. And as was his authority as the owner, said, stop making it go so far over. And they had to, and they finished second. But Oriana is a name that stems from an old Spanish soap opera about Amadis de Gaul, who married a woman who was the personification of feminine beauty. There's a lot of other stuff there, but it's irrelevant. That's where the name came from.
Uh-huh. Very
Oh,
good.
also, it was a name that was used to compliment Queen Elizabeth, I think, at the time.
So that's wonderful. You had quite some adventures in Bristol and Narragansett with Oriana.
Oh, we went all over the East Coast between, I guess you could say, Shelter Island and I've forgotten how far east we went.
Did you take it to
Got
Maine?
east of Plymouth
Did
anyway.
you?
The others,
Oh, you didn't go to Bear Island up in Maine.
not
No.
with that boat.
So well
Yeah.
beyond Narragansett, though.
Yeah.
That's great. Where's the boat today?
It's in the bay, in the harbor.
And
Belongs to a guy who's a member of her ski club,
Oh.
Bob Pfeiffer.
I am not sure that Bob and Janice Pfeiffer are aware that Oriana means the personification of feminine beauty. Did I get that right?
Yes.
I'll have to tell them.
I think I may have given them something which told them that.
Ah, okay. Yes, you probably did. So I would like to hear a little bit about the, I think as you call it, the New Old Yacht Club, where you were the steward.
Well, first is the old yacht club.
Oh, the old Yacht
I
Club.
went in the 38 Hurricane. I just barely remember that. It had a porch on the second story, and I remember being on that. I don't know why, but that was before the hurricane. The hurricane itself, I was at school in New Hampshire.
I don't remember.
Allison sent me pictures recently, just this week, of the old yacht club.
The old yacht.
and the
Old.
new.
I guess the old.
The old yacht. There's the old yacht club, and then there's the old
The
new
new
yacht
old
club.
yacht club.
Oh, the new old yacht club, which is where now the Elks is.
The Elks is next to the Coast Guard station.
And then there's the,
Well, the old one was right there too.
Yeah.
yes.
Same location.
So the new old yacht club was where you were first. You're not steward initially. You were. What was your first job at the new old yacht club?
Oh, I think Stewart was.
Steward.
Yeah.
Is that basically the name of the person who does all the work and gets none of the credit?
Well, he gets the credit. He gets paid.
Ah. And so
This one was the new old yacht club was designed by Normie Harrisoff,
right.
who was brother to Sid and cousin to Captain Nat. No, nephew of Captain Nat.
So did Normie Harrisoff, who I knew and remember, did he didn't do boat designing?
He did a little.
But he did a couple of houses. He did the house that he lived in on Ferry Road.
Yeah, he liked modern.
He certainly did.
He designed a little pram called the Bug's Ear. He said it was cute as a bug's ear, and he used fishing line as some of the rigging. And he let me sail that one time. That was a lot of fun.
Fishing line and some of the rigging, that must have been
Well, it's only
inadequate.
about 8 feet long.
Oh, okay.
It's just a little boat.
That makes sense.
It's a bug's ear.
Cute as a bug's ear.
Cute as a bug's ear.
Do you think they
Tickety
have?
boo.
Do you think they have any record of that up at the Harrisoff Museum?
I have no idea.
Bug's Ear.
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting. So yeah. So
So Normie
Normie
designed
designed
that, and
the new old yacht club.
there's a story that he didn't like where the flagpole was located. So one night in his cups, he cut it down.
In his cups. Because it was in the way of the view. I think everyone who is a member there now appreciates the fact that there is not a flagpole in the middle of their view of the sunset.
Unobstructed view now.
Now, speaking of Normie cutting things down, do you remember the story about what Normie did to Pomeroy and Conrad?
The two bulls at the cult park.
No,
You don't remember that story?
no, I know what high school students have done over the years.
Oh,
They've
I
Well-
see.
painted the genitals.
Yes, but I heard that Normie did something and then had to repair it, and he had
I've heard that.
oh, okay.
Okay.
If I heard
Let me-
it, different.